I bet No likes Maple Story because all the characters' eyes are wide. Josh Moon! Just joshing. Now, talking about kiwi farms, I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene expose herself as an 60 IQ gigatard in real time when she got swatted, presumably by the Tor Swats guys, and believed that the note that they left behind blaming autistic right of the farms was not a forgery, was valid, was genuine. That's wild. And I also remember watching Null tell Autistic Right when he was saying, I don't know, man, I should probably just leave. No, I'm not going to allow that. So one of his moderators who does it for free was literally not allowed to leave. Now, it came off more as a stay on the front line soldier sort of deal. But at the end of the day, it's a little ironic. Oh, well. I only heart react females on Facebook and only like react males because I'm not fucking gay, mate. All right, let's get serious. Leftists. I know, woke? Well, hold on. Leftists are bound up in a lot of contradictions right now, bemoaning the downsizing and potential elimination of the TSA over 9/11. But recognizing that Khalil hasn't broken any law or instructed anyone to break a law, that's the crazy thing, is the contradiction between the hyper-policing of Muslims due to 9/11 and that particular issue. It's just like, maybe you should be for the Trump administration eliminating or downsizing the TSA and the Senate eliminating the TSA. Maybe you should, because it's not like we had a ton of terrorist attacks before 9/11, right? And it's not like they've gone any ways about preventing anything. Like, there's no real cases of them preventing terrorist attacks with the TSA, so why not? It's literally like raping people in between going on planes. Mind you, I wouldn't go on planes anyways because the new Boeings, their wings are in a different location than they should be, and so they'll literally just crash out. The electronic sensors will like prevent them from adjusting properly. They'll just adjust on their own, and the planes will literally like require extreme skill not to crash. Thanks, Boeing. Boeing is the same reason why Butch and Sony, those astronauts, were stuck in space for like 8 months. Couldn't walk when they came back, naturally, because your circulatory system and your tendons adjust to lack of gravity. And over too long, they can't necessarily adjust back. They start to, bulge out due to lack of the proper capillary pressure that is formed by gravity. It's so wild watching that guy. There's just a tiny clip of Joe Rogan. I've been watching a few positive Joe Rogan stuff, just regular Joe Rogan, but I've also seen people play clips of Joe Rogan before, and there's a guy that says that gravity is their god, and we, whoever that is about to kill gravity. And so the scientists are trying to prevent their god from being destroyed. That was literally the craziest thing I think I've ever heard, because it's said with more sincerity than the fiber optic cables guys, the tinfoil hats guys, the 5G people. It's said with far more sincerity and far more gravity, if you will, than any of the other, like, insane schizo theories, hypotheses that I've heard so far. That was wild. I don't remember that guy's name. He's a black guy. Probably extreme brain damage, probably from UFC. That's my guess. I don't know anything about them. But back to leftist contradictions. Crying about revocations on vaccine mandates and crying about revocations of fluoride mandates while saying hands off my body regarding baby blending. By the way, baby blending is what I call abortions. Okay. I'm not saying the right isn't contradictory, but it's particularly bad. And it's particularly bad when you attempt to take so many wide stretched stances on so many different issues that you care about. And I feel you, I want to care about a lot of stuff, but also my advice is to keep things grounded and keep things in arm's reach so that you do not hyperextend yourself and end up being swallowed up with the contradictions that the world presents. You see, you'll have a different truth in a different area than particular areas, and you have to account for that. Just as you have to account, like a sniper has to account for a bullet and the curvature of the earth exuded on it from like 2,000 yards or more, or so like that. I'm not even sure if that's an accurate reading. I'm not even sure if that's an accurate shot. You can take. I'm not even sure if you could take a 2,000-yard shot, but still, if you're taking a shot around 2,000 yards, you actively have to account for the curvature of the Earth. Whereas, and this is the whole flat Earth thing, if you don't, if you're shooting from like 500 yards, you don't necessarily have to account for the curvature of the Earth. It's fine with just accounting for the wind and the humidity and the other factors involved. The problem with democracies is that it constantly makes half of the country inflamed, yet focused on the future, and the other half inactive and settled, and this flips back and forth all the time. Reality is active right now, and no words in the past can make up for the lack of real pragmatic action in the present. In that way, democracy is a scam. Nobody gets a mandate from things they said in the past. It's from things that they're doing. Straight up. I'd love to see good Elon Musk, by the way, if he's so keen on giving out money. But it's the same philanthropy you see all the billionaires do, which is cycling back into their own cash streams. He does do lotteries every once in a while. Gamers tend to do drop parties more often than non-gamers. But for what he paid for Twitter, he could have ended world hunger 6 times over. How about just in America? There are so many people who would be having kids if the finances weren't so horrific. There are people who would be having more than one kid if the finances weren't so horrific. There are people that would be having kids and pets, but can only afford to have pets because the finances are so horrific. It's not a death cult based on the environment. Like, it's the most insane thing ever. The what's that blacked out environmentalist group over in England mostly? That's sort of a doomsday cult, but guess what? That's paid for by, dark money, black market, USAID style money. That isn't genuine. That isn't real. You ask people, hey, do you want to cut down every tree around you so that the windstorms just rip right through you? You want to dump pollutants in your local streams so you can't ever fish? Do you want to have acid rain? You ask people these genuine questions, you be honest with them about the negative effects of what human beings can do with all of our equipment. And a vast majority will say, not in my neighborhood, not in my backyard. But you got your YIMBYs who are quite literally brainwashed into thinking that, yes, make things worse in my backyard. And I can't help but thinking that a lot of those people are like dual citizenship foreigners, renters, who are just trying, like, there was this weird phenomenon where people were, and I remember this back in like 2021 or so, and this was going around, this was making the rounds. This is a weird phenomenon where people thought by like shooting off a ton of guns in the middle of the night that they would lower the rent in the area, that they would lower the tax rate. That it only went up. It only went up. You drove away people who had locked in contracts, who were trying to protect their children, and then things got raised. It went the opposite of what they were projecting it to be. It seems that Elon Musk is pro-natalist in name only, unfortunately. From construction to conservation, there's so many things that can be done. It could strengthen our country significantly, but everything is shoddy and everything is stupid, and we're replacing things, though they may be old, that were well built with shoddy slapdash. Save as much on materials, save as much on work and the quality of it and artisanship as possible. Destroy all things that look good and serve people. Make everything smelly and loud, like quite literally. That is a big thing, and you saw this rolled out in big cities, and now it's sweeping in all the rest of the country, specifically because the people that started this stuff for the last 4 years have had a complete and utter pass to do whatever they want, from slaughtering children to wrecking everybody's backyards. Because Joe Biden was like a legitimate hardcore Zionist and had been since the 90s. And it's super funny that they reward him by pissing on his legacy and saying that he made things worse for Israel. He's increased the global caliphate. Like, projection much? Also, that's what you get if you support Zionism to the hilt. They smear you and belittle you and punish you for not giving the 2,000-pound bombs fast enough. It's sick, man. It's sick. Totally sick. The sickness is the point. The people could not sleep at night if they weren't scamming as quickly as possible. That dopamine of grinding human beings up to move forward is the only thing that allows them any succor at all. But don't get it twisted. They are miserable people, but they are pretty happy as long as they're moving forward. There's a concept I crafted called the dark hippie, where they're for nature conservation of a secluded area that could be hot for tourism, taxing it severely, and deliberately creating endangered species out of the populations of plants and animals that would inhabit the entire area as non-endangered animals. Miriam Adelson comes to mind. Death for Gazan children and Mali for the Israelis. Hey, better than Sheldon. Las Vegas is truly a demon pit, and I hope to one day see it burn to the ground. I wonder how many of those Cybertrucks just got blown up because the people who are managing them can't offload them. They can't offload them, so they'd rather make a big stink about it, get taxes, get news vans, get all sorts of kickbacks from blowing up their own stock. Now, I know, of course, there's the ANTIFA. Like, as you might know, I'm banned from going into Fargo by ANTIFA. I'll still go into ANTIFA if I want to. Excuse me. Roll that back. I'll still go into Fargo if I want to. I'll still go wherever I want. I'll go Portland, Los Angeles if I want to. But I'm not liked very much by ANTIFA, and they put like a memo out on me after I tried to deconvert one of my friends that was in there, and he was seeing my points, but like they legitimately forced him to cut me off, and it is what it is, man. That's a gang of its own accord. It's very likely funded, like all the rest of our gangs, by our black markets, by our dark money, and our CIA and its fingers, our FBI, our police, which have come, like, if you look at what, like, back to the blowing up the Teslas, if you look at what police benefit from, they don't benefit as much from a quiet, peaceful time as they do from people in the gated communities thinking that they need to give them military equipment, people in the government turning them, and the news, turning them into like major heroes by fighting these huge forces, when in reality they should just be keeping the peace, protecting and serving the citizenship of a country. But you can totally see how since 9/11 it's been the modus operandi of the establishment, the deep state as you will, to manufacture instances of terrorism in order to gain consent for full purchase into certain communities. It's just how things roll. Anyways, I'll go to ANTIFA if I want to. Apparently, I'm going to sound kind of crazy saying this, but apparently a lot of the new cameras, they don't let you take pictures of the moon. They just autofill with a picture from their AI database. I was thinking about that. It's probably because they're going to put weapons up there and stuff. And speaking of, it'd be super funny if Elon was billing Trump for like nuke satellites and Starlink across the nation and just never actually materialized. It'd be funny to find out that Putin doesn't have them either, those EMP detonation satellites that they were talking about half a year ago. We're just trading paper around and things are fine, actually. Not really. I mean, the market collapse can't come quick enough. I am so sick of seeing people profit bigly off of the economy and then turn around and undermine that same economy in every way possible. I am so sick of the stock market being a vehicle for evil, and I'm so sick of our money being printed by the trillions and hoarded like it's worth anything outside of flowing through the system to keep it circulated, watered, and healthy. Kill it. Just kill it. People have, in the last 3 decades, convinced us to ignore all history, all science, all logic. They've injected the Nazi obsession with genes into the conversation, when genes account for very little of what they're ascribed to in anthroposophy, probably about 10%. They've convinced us not to believe our lying eyes while projecting their own faults onto the innocent. They've made the scientific process into a popularity contest, and they've rewritten our history and murdered our heroes. But the buck stops with you. It's wild watching Israel go, well, we're Babylon now. Or watching Epstein associates call Muslims pedophiles. I don't think every Jew is a pedophile just because the Epstein Mossad ring was trafficking children en masse, just because Manhattan was a hub for child sex trafficking, thanks to people like Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts. I don't think that all Jews are pedophiles, but you'll hear on the media, some people saying that all Muslims are pedophiles because Muhammad brain was failing, spoiled merchant at the end of his life, not a prophet, intelligent, but a spoiled human merchant at the end of his life. He legitimately raped a 9-year-old girl, and that's what people ascribe to all Muslims. And that's just not right, you know? To do the same would be to completely and utterly destroy the Catholic Church forever, just because Masons under John Paul II got deep, deep, deep into the Catholic Church, undermined it to a maximum, turned it into a child sex trafficking hub, turned it into a heroin trafficking hub, black market, black money. You know, that's billions and billions and billions of dollars funneling from the Golden Triangle and the Golden Crescent over to the Vatican into crime laundering through the Vatican Bank, which was established by Pius XI. As I said, he was kind of a fascist in a way, and you know, number go up is a big thing with these Mussolini types, right? It's one of the reasons why Italians are so sick of the mind these days. If they're not pinned to a Catholicism that has preserved itself from before the 1900s came and just tidal waved everything. By the way, anthroposophy was basically invented in 1875, theosophy and anthroposophy. And, you know, it's funny to look at the old Conan books from the 1930s and go, this is where D&D came from. You know, I'm not calling D&D, but that's where all the racial science from D&D that makes a lot of people uncomfortable comes from. You see. The only thing our greatest ally exports to us is violent psychopathy, drugs like MDMA, apps that spy on you and don't do the job that they're supposed to. They're deep into the police and homeland security that oppresses law-abiding citizens on behalf of narrative humpers. They poison us physically, mentally, spiritually. You know, every person born in the last 40 years knows what it's like to be blasted by violent culture as a kid. And where do you think that comes from? Comes from the same people that killed Kennedy, and it does matter, Ben Shapiro. I know you're floundering really hard, but I'm going to address you anyways. It does matter who killed John F. Kennedy. It's the Zionists. Who said that? Someone's speaking Yiddish in my walls. I think the highest IQ take on coronavirus is that there are always viruses like swine flu and Lyme floating around, but they only deploy them in mass if somebody like Bernie Sanders gets close to the political levers. It ended up being the reason why Bernie dropped out, because he didn't want to see people continuously die of coronavirus. He knew it was a thing. The mainstream media waited until after he dropped out and immediately started reporting on coronavirus, and then the Trump administration in 2020 started locking down after that. It was a somewhat coordinated effort, and I have no idea where the coordination streams come from, but I can only guess it's Israel if it had that level of coordination between these various disparate sectors. But it quite literally it's too perfect for it to have been a coincidence. How things perfectly metered out, and I was watching very closely, and everybody else was too. And if you're honest, and you're not a raving lunatic, because they made a lot of the Bernie supporters into raving lunatics about coronavirus, you'll actually notice that the coronavirus was deployed intentionally to stop a burgeoning Bernie Sanders primary. That and the Obama call. Ugh. Letting Obama bully you, letting Obama push you around and emotionally manipulate you, and then bending the knee to Biden, your legacy's cooked, bro. I would never vote for Bernie after that, dude. I couldn't trust him. I just straight up couldn't trust him. And it sucks, because he's the closest thing to a real person, a real human being with consistent and honest morals and values and American principles. He's the closest thing we have in, like, our entire Congress, from Senate to House. I mean, Thomas Massey's pretty dang good, I will say. Let's put Thomas Massey up there too. Rand Paul, up there too. He's part of a dying breed. Bernie and Trump had a similar percentage of support in the country, just with drastically different dissenters. However, all mandates are conditional, and Trump promised to end the wars that he's actively encouraging to continue at the moment. That will lose him the mandate of heaven. There's a big talk on whether or not martial law will be implemented this coming month, whether it's tomorrow or on the 20th. But I'm not betting on it. America is well armed. You can bully some peacenik hippies with SWAT teams, but don't think that applies to everybody. On God. All right, y'all. It's good for today.